So people who follow this channel know that I'm a huge Android fan. I've been using Android phones for almost a decade now. I've used iPhones before but never really liked them. But the iPhone 14 Pro Max was intriguing, so I got one and I've been using it for a month now as my daily driver. There are a few things that I like about this phone and a few that I absolutely don't. So without much ado, let's get right into the review. First of all, let's talk about the one thing that totally saved the iPhone 14 Pro Max from all the mockery on the internet, the dynamic island. It turned this eyesore into a well thought out interactive UI element. Apple designed the dynamic island to change in size and shape depending on what's being displayed. When you unlock your phone, for example, you'll see the unlock icon, or when you connect the charger, you can see the charging status, and you can control the music, timer, and more. Third-party apps can also take advantage of this, so it's one of the best things about the phone purely because it's so refreshing. Now, where I was wrong with the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the always-on display. When I first got the phone, I really liked it because, it was different than what others were doing. It was smart as well because it automatically turns off when you leave the phone in a room and walk out while wearing an Apple Watch. Also, it turns off when the phone is in your pocket or face down on a table, thus helping to save battery life while the device is not in use, so it was pretty cool. But there are a couple of reasons why I turned it off, because A, it's distracting. There were many times in a day I got fooled into thinking that I got a notification because the display is literally on all the time, taking always on rather literally. But the biggest reason I turned it off is that it was sipping battery like there was no tomorrow. I found that the phone lost around 20% more battery when it was on, so I just decided to get rid of it and turn it off. Apple should have gone Samsung's way because it's so subtle, it isn't distracting, and even though the always-on display on Samsung phones does consume battery, not as much as Apple's though, but Samsung does give an option to only show the clock when you tap the display, which basically doesn't consume battery at all. So Apple had the potential to create something magical with this, but the experience falls flat rather spectacularly. But the overall display is great, outdoor viewing is not a problem at all because of the crazy brightness, the True Tone works well, and the colors and contrast were on point. There's nothing you can complain about the display. But what I would like to complain about is the phone's weight and pointy edges. Yes, the stainless steel finish does look premium and I really like the flat sides. It feels good when you pick the phone up, but when you hold it for a longer period of time, it starts to get really uncomfortable because of the pointy edges and the weight. But overall, I like the design. The purple looks really good in the right light conditions because depending on the light, it either looks purple or gray. One thing I noticed with other YouTubers is that when the S22 Ultra was launched, everyone criticized the design of the camera module because it was a dirt magnet. And I absolutely agree, it does accumulate dust. But those same people didn't say a word about the 14 Pro Max's camera module. If that was a dirt magnet, this is a dirt magnet Pro Max. The fact that it's glossy and has an even bigger camera bump, it easily attracts dust and it looks bad. I was wiping the camera module multiple times a day when I was filming B-rolls, and even after that it doesn't look clean, so there's that. Coming from the S22 Ultra, I was a little surprised to find out that iPhones don't support reverse wireless charging. The multitasking is a joke in iPhones. You only get a picture-in-picture mode and no split screen mode like on Samsung phones. The notifications are still a mess in iOS, but credit where the credit is due, the phone is super fluid. I really like the animations of iOS on this phone. Every single animation is well thought out, from the unlocking animation to the app opening and closing and the dynamic island animations. I was really impressed. Even third-party apps such as Twitter function so smoothly on this phone. For some reason, Twitter stutters a lot on Samsung phones. So if we talk about the overall performance, this thing is a powerhouse. It can handle anything you throw at it, doesn't matter how heavy the game is or how taxing the productivity app is. It was a pleasant experience. Speaking of experience, I was quite impressed with the battery life. I was easily getting the phone to last 2 days when I was using the phone to watch movies, YouTube, and social media sites. Even when I was taking the phone out to take photos and 4K videos with all gaming and a lot of YouTube and social media usage, I still end up with around 20% charge at the end of the day. That wasn't the case with the S22 Ultra though. If I were to choose a phone where I don't have to worry about the battery and can heavily use the phone when I don't have access to the charging port, I'll choose the iPhone 14 Pro Max on any given day. Now coming to the camera, Apple finally jumped onto the higher megapixel bandwagon. The 14 Pro Max now has a 48 megapixel main camera and it takes excellent photos. The image quality and details are great for a phone, the colors look good, and the textures are great. In broad daylight, both the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the S22 Ultra take similar photos from the main camera. There's a minor difference between the two, but you really have to go looking for it. But it's at low light you start seeing some differences, and it all boils down to post-processing. Apple's been ramping up the amount of noise reduction and sharpening it does over the years, and the 14 Pro Max has the most aggressive sharpening and noise reduction yet. The S22 Ultra consistently holds on to more color detail in low light. It's not as heavy-handed with noise reduction and sharpening. In true Samsung fashion, you get much punchier and warmer colors compared to the more natural look of the iPhone. The same is the case in low light video as well. As you can see, the 14 Pro Max is more aggressive with noise reduction, but it's the S22 Ultra that holds on to the colors really well. Yes, there's some noise, but overall it captures a little better low light video. But in good lighting conditions, both performs really well. Apple has improved the cinematic mode quite a lot this year. No, you're not gonna get a DSLR level type of blur, but they are slowly getting there. Now where the iPhone falls behind is in zoom. The S22 Ultra has a dedicated periscope zoom lens, which the 14 Pro Max doesn't, so it's not really an apple-to-apple comparison. But at this price point, a phone must have a periscope zoom camera. So if we talk about the overall camera performance, I would say the 14 Pro Max is right up there with the S22 Ultra for the best smartphone camera of the year. It's only when you extensively start looking for the difference, you start noticing the difference. So overall, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a great phone. We're not gonna go wrong with this. If you have the 11 Pro or lower, you should really get this because I don't think the differences are that significant for 12 Pro and 13 Pro users. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep using the S22 Ultra as my main phone and keep the 14 Pro Max as my second phone because for me, iOS is very limiting. I'm also a PC user and the iPhone and PC don't communicate really well. There's no periscope zoom either, no S-Pen, and I like the look of the S22 Ultra more. First, if you like the review, do hit that like button because it helps the channel a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.